And we're back with The Edge.
It is The Edge here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We are brought to you by Big Lots. Live big, save lots. Go to a Big Lots store near you or visit biglots.com or do them all. Let's do it. I also love the music. The music's just really good. Just let it breathe. God, it's so good. Quick update. I know it's the NBA. Scoreless still between Norwich right now in Southampton. We're looking at the 45th minute, so we're approaching the break at this point right now. So, Michael Lombardi's ears are perking up because we're talking about the Philadelphia 76ers on today's edition of Nothing But Analytics. And the first thing that stuck out to me, because we'll look at the numbers right now for the Philadelphia 76ers, and granted, when you're struggling sitting around, the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference, you've been really up and down, you've been a very pro road team, a lot of what you've put on the floor up to this point is pretty mediocre. You can see the numbers right there in terms of the against the spread numbers, 28, 33, and 4 against the spread, 34, 30 to the over in their games played up to this point, and their odds to win both the finals and the Eastern Conference. They've been inflated a little bit, 20-1 to win the finals, 8-1 to win the Eastern Conference. We should note, by the way, that before the hiatus, we were talking about nearly 10-1 on the Eastern Conference and 30-1 to win the NBA title. So these have come back a little bit since we have had the plan announced that they're going to go to Orlando and that the Philadelphia 76ers are getting a little healthy. Because I think we forget how much the injury bug really affected this team. Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Josh Richardson were all out for a good stretch in the games prior to the hiatus. So this 76ers team, if you've listened to The Edge or VSiN at all, you understand that before the season was made, or before the season started, the pick that I made for the NBA Finals was Clippers 76ers. And I still, look, it was a preseason pick. I'm invested in them at 12-1, so I still sit back and think that this is going to be my selection. There's still a lot to like about the 76ers team, but let's dive into the statistical profile for them up to this point. Look at some strengths and weaknesses, and we'll look at the new starting lineup that they might roll out by the time we get to Orlando. But first off, you'll notice that both strength and weaknesses actually, it's very scant. There's not much going on. Some of their offensive strengths, it's not surprising when you have guys like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons on the floor that they're one of the best teams in the NBA in terms of shooting at the rim, 64.6%. And as we've talked about multiple times, rim accuracy correlates to corner three-point shooting. 6th best team in terms of corner three-point shooting in the NBA. What? This team can't shoot. We'll get to that because I think it's a little overblown as well. Half-court offensive rebounding as well. The rebounding rate, offensive rebounding rate in the half-court is spectacular. They're 8th in the NBA up to this point, 27.9%. I'm actually kind of surprised how poor they are in terms of fast break efficiency. They're 18th in the NBA, just averaging 120.9 points per 100 possessions. With a guy like Ben Simmons, who loves to lead the break, certain things like that, their frequency in terms of how often they get out in transition really spikes when Ben Simmons is on the floor. So I'm a little surprised how poor they are from that perspective. But this is what I wanted to talk about, and we can tie in what we're going to see, and we'll look at the defense as well. Shake Milton is going to be part of their new starting lineup, the Philadelphia 76ers. So we're looking at a starting lineup of Ben Simmons, Josh Richardson, Tobias Harris, Shake Milton, and Joel Embiid. Al Horford, of course, gets the bench. He'll come in with the second unit. He'll be part of we'll call it their clamp unit near the end, where they don't really care about scoring. So look at this from this perspective, because I thought this was really interesting, right? Shake Milton, via cleaning the glass, we have some of the numbers on when he is on the floor, okay? Let's take a look at their offense, for example. When Shake Milton's on the floor, their points per possession, the Philadelphia 76ers, go up by 4.5 points per 100 possessions. Their three-point frequency, in terms of how often they take three-point shots, that jumps by 2.5%. Their three-point shooting overall jumps by 1.4% when he is on the floor. Again, this is all offensive, right? We'll get to the defensive numbers in a second. But to me, that last number, and this is what we talk about with the Philadelphia 76ers all the time, right? The spacing. The spacing needs to be better, okay? Spacing needs to be better. You need to get shooters on the floor. You need to make sure that these defenders actually have to play the perimeter, have to respect the perimeter and the guys around the perimeter. A lot of that has to do with, actual percentage of three-point shots, or in terms of three-point shooting. But a lot of it has to do with guys who are actually just willing to take the shot, right? It's the biggest criticism of one Ben Simmons. Well, with Shake Milton on the floor, Philadelphia 76ers rim shooting jumps by 5.7%. That speaks to spacing. That speaks to the fact that with Shake Milton's on the floor, he is a threat to take a three-point shot, and he opens up the floor for his teammates around him. So that's going to be massive, I think, with Shake Milton on the floor for the Philadelphia 76ers. A team who, by the way, we just told you, was actually one of the 10 best teams in terms of shooting at the rim. The spacing could get even better for them, and that's with them struggling with spacing. So think about that from the perspective of actually having a shooter of Shake Milton's caliber on the floor with them. Here's the inverse, though, of having a guy like Shake Milton on the floor with them. And if you remember, right before the hiatus, when they were playing, Shake Milton was actually the star for a while. Their three-point attempts had really gone up. Their offensive efficiency had jumped up to like 124.8, but their defensive efficiency had gone up to like 125.2. Their defensive efficiency was awful. Now, it's not all on Shake Milton, but it does speak to the fact that Shake Milton is not one of the best defenders in the NBA. You see it in some of the defensive numbers, right? I'll tell you this right now. When you look at these defensive numbers again, which we're going to throw up for you, you don't want plus signs by those numbers on defense, all right? You want minus signs, right? You want shooting percentage to drop. You want points per possession to drop when you're on the floor. No, you can throw that other one back up, the Shake Milton one, really quickly. We'll get to these in a second. But you look at the Shake Milton numbers with him on the floor defensively. Sorry, guys. Points per possession. Opponent's point per possession with Shake Milton on the floor jumps by 6.7 points per 100 possessions. Rim accuracy with Shake Milton on the floor jumps 2.5% for opponents. Mid-range shooting jumps up by 6.3%. The only thing that is relatively harmed with Milton on the floor is their three-point shooting, which drops about 0.4%. You can speak to a lot of things with that. That's really a minimal percentage, so maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe it just means they're so busy getting to the rim that it doesn't really matter. But regardless, when Shake Milton on the floor, the defense hasn't been very good. Here's the caveat with this, though. They haven't played this lineup this year at all. And so maybe with Shake Milton, having guys like Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Josh Richardson on the floor with him, right? Maybe that actually helps with the defensive numbers because he hasn't been playing with a unit like this in terms of the lineups, and that's why his numbers are so skewed defensively. And you can make the same argument with it offensively. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that when they were playing without Josh Richardson, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, it was like 4 shooting guards and Al Horford out there just chucking up shots, and that was probably why they were so bad offensively, or excuse me, so bad defensively, but as good as they were offensively. So all this to say that Shake Milton is going to have an impact for the Philadelphia 76ers. I think these numbers tell you that, especially offensively, a team that has struggled as much as Philadelphia has, they are going to be better with Shake Milton on the floor. So now we can look at their numbers defensively overall in the season, right? So we talked about how bad it has been, at least with Milton on the floor defensively. Here's some of the numbers for Philadelphia defensively on the season. Some of their strengths: efficiency overall, 107.6, the 6th best defensive rating in the NBA. Defending the mid-range is interesting. And actually, so we're efforting to get on Ben Falk. Hopefully, maybe we can get him on one day when we talk about these statistics. I've always wondered when it comes to teams that defend the mid-range well, is that actually something of like defensive prowess, or is that because it's the mid-range shot, and as we know, mid-range shots are inefficient and they don't fall as frequently? Regardless, mid-range shooting, 39.3%, 10th best in the NBA, and the fast break efficiency, at least from a defensive standpoint, very good for the Philadelphia 76ers. 117.1 points per 100 possessions what they give up. It's the 6th best rate in the NBA. Here's the interesting part about Philadelphia. And when you have the size that they have, like Al Horford, like Joel Embiid, like Ben Simmons, they're really good offensively at the rim. You'd expect them to be able to guard the rim effectively, and yet they can't. 64.3% is what they give up at the rim to opponents. That's 19th in the NBA. And corner 3 shooting, remember, always correlated, right? We've talked about this. Corner 3-point shooting is at 38.9% for opponents, 17th best in the NBA. So you'd expect them to be better at the rim. And I think that's like the great mystery of the Philadelphia 76ers, right? You don't go, wherever it is, in any sport, you don't go 29-2 at home, right? And you're not a good team. Like you're 29-2 for a reason, especially at home. And maybe it is all about, the home court environment and the fans, whatever. You're still at some point that 29-2 team. So it's how do you put this together from that standpoint? Is it adding a guy like Shake Milton into the lineup to add shooting, to add spacing, to give you a better flow offensively, right? Is it just effort? Is it the fact that these guys are now healthy? Ben Simmons suffering from that serious injury. Joel Embiid being in and out of the lineup for about 2 months because of a hand injury that he suffered, right? Remember that disgusting ring finger that he had that was pointing at like a 90-degree angle? These are the things that have held Philadelphia back, as well as effort, right? There's no denying that either, what do you call it, effort or scheming, whatever it is, there have been things that hold Philadelphia back. But for me personally, when I look at this team and why I still have faith in the Philadelphia 76ers, at least to be somewhat of the team that I expected them to be before the season, they still have a starting lineup that is 6'10", 6'7", 6'6", 6'10", or excuse me, 6'9" in Tobias Harris and 7 foot in Joel Embiid. Still have Al Horford coming off of the bench, right? Who is a really adequate big if you want to throw him in the 5 spot or throw him in the 4 and throw somebody else out there, like the next Ben Wallace, as Michael Lombardi calls him, Norvell Pell, whoever it is, right? You still went out and acquired 2 other shooting guards to help improve the shooting for your bench unit right before the trade deadline. So there's still a lot of things to like. And here's the most important part, which is, again, we're waiting for this schedule to come out for the Philadelphia 76ers, but it's how the bracket shakes out. Philadelphia wants Boston. They're 3-1 against Boston this season in the regular season. Their net rating is very good against the Boston Celtics. They can actually take advantage, like we talked about this before. Maybe Boston's lack of size is a little overrated, but in certain matchups, it's going to burn them. And against a team like Philadelphia, I think it will, and it's shown in the regular season. So how does that shake out? Are they actually going to try to win games, or are they actually going to try to play for seeding? Because I don't think they want a team like Miami, who's had success against them. Right? And so how they perform in these 8 seeding games is going to be massive. But if Philly stays in the 6th seed and they get to take on the Boston Celtics in the first round and you move on to the second round, I think we're going to be surprised about what Philadelphia can actually do once you get to the postseason. Now, a lot's going to be on the shoulders of one Shake Milton potentially, and how well he fits in that lineup. Remember, Furkan Korkmaz was actually inserted into the starting lineup right before the break. He had like back-to-back 18-point games, and then he just disappeared and played absolutely nothing. So, and remember, they had a win over the Los Angeles Clippers right before the break too. This team is really good. They have yet to put it all together. So, nothing but analytics on the Philadelphia 76ers. Watch out for Shake Milton. We'll see what he provides for this team from a spacing perspective, but I would expect really nothing but good things from Philadelphia once you get to Orlando. Having said that, play this all back when they get swept in the first round and lose all 8 of their seeding games and are absolutely garbage. But regardless, all right, that does it for the Edge this week. I thought we had a great week of show, so make sure to check out a lot of stuff up on vsin.com/bestbets in terms of the podcast. Some of it's still evergreen. Ron Flatter had a great interview earlier in the week talking about the Belmont Stakes, what he thought, at least in terms of a lot of these horses and the analysis. Postseason has been drawn, of course, so that'll affect your handicapping from there. And a lot of great coverage for RBC Heritage. So good luck this weekend with all your bets. Hopefully you don't get a guy like Jordan Spieth who collapsed on me over the weekend. I will be sweating out this soccer match and much more. We will see you on Monday here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.